It's a great pleasure for me to introduce the first keynote speaker today, a courageous democratic leader, a true fighter for democracy, a hero for all freedom-loving people, President Zelensky of Ukraine.
Thank you for the invitation. And thank you for those warm words. I believe that it's not me counting on them, but the whole people of Ukraine. But I'm very grateful for those words. Dear Mr. Rasmussen, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for the opportunity to address you. And last year at the 4th Copenhagen Democracy Summit, there was a question: where's the front line between freedom and oppression, and how to protect freedom from the authoritarian regimes? Well, this year we got an answer to this question, not just in debates, but on the battlefield. This year has shown that it's very important and that Ukraine has become a line of confrontation, but between what and what? Is that just between freedom and oppression, or between democracy and authoritarian regimes? Yes, between them, but you can take a look at this confrontation from another point of view. It can be assessed not only in terms of political regimes or ideologies. You would need to look at that from the terms of the ability to turn a word into action. This is the fundamental ability of any system, public, state, business. If this ability is not there, that the system would lose. Of course, we all raised in cultures that value the word, and the democratic system is always based on the fact that the word that matters most. And I don't want to underestimate the importance of debates, opinions, and positions. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that it took only a small time for a single system to turn the words about the people that allegedly does not exist into those brutal hostilities aimed at destroying those people, or the words that some territory is supposed to be part of another state, into actions to capturing those territories? Or can the democratic systems quickly provide support to that people who became the victims of this aggression? So how quickly the tyranny starts this aggression? Does the democratic world have the tools to quickly ensure the protection of that territory who someone decide to capture? Last year at a summit like this, such words could form the basis for an interesting debate about the powers of Europe and Russian tyranny. But this year, we can see that these are absolutely practical questions, and they decide the fate of millions of people, not only in Ukraine, because Russia is interested in far larger territory than the sovereign territory of Ukraine, and Russia does not recognize the right to the independence, not only for Ukrainian people. Ladies and gentlemen, let us look closer at some of the words that have not turned yet into action. The word is always the basis for the law. It's always the basis for an agreement, convention, statute, declaration, and of course, memorandum. During the Russian war against Ukraine, and I would like to remind you that it started not on the 24th of February, but it started in 2014. Russia has violated over 400 international treaties and agreements to which our states are the parties. And let me list some of those agreements. Well, of course, the UN Charter, the UN Convention for the Suppression of Financing of Terrorism, UN Convention on the Prevention and Punishment for the Crime of Genocide, then a number of conventions governing the laws and customs of war, the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance, the Convention on the Protection of Cultural Property in the event of an armed conflict, the UN Convention on Elimination of all forms of rational discrimination, the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. So these are key global documents, but then there's more documents which are fundamental for Europe. Russia has violated the final act of CSC of 1975, the European Convention on the Protection of Human Rights and Fundamental Freedoms, well, the Statute of the Council of Europe. And of course, we should be all mentioning the Budapest Memorandum, which Russia has violated, and that adds the maximum cynicism to that situation. And by violating all that, Russia has put an end to the entire struggle for nuclear disarmament of the world. I mean, nobody would be thinking of that because Ukraine, who lost its third largest nuclear arsenal, is now under attack by the country who signed a pledge to refrain from aggression and still remains a nuclear state. Democracy is always respect for words, and international law is also about respect for words, but they only work and they could only be active if they're backed with actions, when a word literally means action. So returning to the question of where is that line of confrontation between freedom and oppression, we should all say that this line runs in between of the ability to say something and being ready to act to reinforce certain words, those promises to voters, these words in negotiations and the texts of conventions on the Ukrainian border. In our Ukrainian Donbass, in the vicinity of Kharkiv in the south of Ukraine, we can now see that Ukrainian people are really ready to back up their words about independence with actions, the actions to defend our independence. But where is this border where you would be able to see that Europe is already ready to back up their important words with appropriate actions? Why? If the poll shows that 71% of Europeans consider Ukraine part of the European family, why are there still skeptical politicians who are hesitant whether Ukraine should be allowed to move to the European Union? Why? If European core values imply that every nation is important and has to be equally respected, why then Ukrainian people have been told for so long that they must still remain in this gray zone between European Union and Russia? Why, if Russia cynically violates literally all the key documents of international law, why are there still those who are hesitant whether to block any relations with such a state? Those questions indicate, in fact, that the European system might lose if words would not be backed with actions. A democratic system could lose in our continent if there would be no actions. So first, we need to remove this gray area, which is so tempting for the Russian state. We need to move to actions from that Ukraine should be a part of the European family. In the coming weeks and days, the European Union may take a historic step that will prove that words about the belonging of Ukrainian people to the European family are not just words and not empty words. Secondly, we need to have some effective, legally binding security guarantees in a renewed security architecture for the European continent. And we're currently working on such a system of guarantees for Ukraine, and only when it will be definite, will be agreed, then we can say that thousands of words on the pages of many conventions, treaties, and memoranda, these are not just words, but a reality that is supported properly with actions. We should learn to act preventively, not just to respond, but to act when the first words of aggression are heard, when it becomes clear that the war could start at any moment. The aggressor must feel the power of the democratic world, the power of international law, as soon as this aggressor only intends to violate the existing basic norms. And the third, all war criminals have to be held accountable. Justice must say its word, and the word of justice must be backed, once again, with actions. For every death inflicted in Ukraine by Russian soldiers, for every torture and rape, and every city destroyed, for the deportation of our people and children, there has to be a responsibility for the Russian commanders and politicians who gave orders like that. The democracy must be effective in every sense. The Europe must be effective. If words are pronounced, if they are a paper, if they have become a document or international law, these words must work. They must act. And when that happens, there will be no question of who's going to win and where is this front line. Of course, it's democracy. Of course, it's Europe. And above all, in the minds of leaders who must act and not just speak. So thank you for the attention, and glory to Ukraine.